In my head, this wasn't going to be that long, but I've been filming this all in one go, and I have a lot of footage. Anyway, July. First we've got Dave. We're all alone in this together. What an album! So Dave's kind of cemented himself as like top in sort of UK hip hop with this album and with Psychodrama. Like he's just clearly one of the most sort of talented MCs out there. Well, he's one of the most talented MCs in the UK, and it's really translated. I think a lot of American audiences are now starting to see that, and starting to take sort of UK hip hop more seriously, especially with this album and with Little Simz new album as well this year. The storytelling in this album is amazing. The In the Fire cipher is so great. That took me by surprise. Both sides is some song, and Heart Attack is one of the best songs this year. Just like I can't describe. If you haven't heard Heart Attack by Dave yet, stick that on. It's so great. It's everything that's amazing about him in one track. I'd say the only downside of this album is that it does get a wee bit samey because it's like basically just grime with piano, because Dave's like a pianist as well. So like when you listen to it as an album, it can get a little bit like, oh, it's more of this. But like I think his direction with the album, I think just the actual songwriting on display here makes up for that. That's probably a personal thing as well. Like I like stuff that's kind of um you know a lot of different sounds coming together, a lot of experimentation and so on. Whereas I guess like people who listen to a lot of grime um, aren't going to be like, oh no, it's more grime. Yeah, really, really good. Definitely recommend this, especially if you listen to a lot of hip hop, but you haven't heard Dave. Try this and Psychodrama. Just really, really good grime albums, and like it might get you into grime as well. Do you know what I mean? It might get you into um some more UK hip hop. You know, as I say, he's just one of the best MCs about now, and people are starting to really pay attention to him. Next in July we have Billie Eilish's Happier Than Ever. I kind of forgot this album came out. I listened to it twice when it came out and didn't listen to it again. I'm not really a Billie Eilish fan anyway, although I don't, you know, write Facebook comments being like, who? Or like, oh, you call that whispering singing? People who like make hating Billie Eilish their personality are so funny, man. But yeah, I'm not really a big fan of hers. Like, I remember when Bad Guy first became huge, the first time I heard that, I'm the bad guy. I thought that's quite annoying. I don't like that. And clearly a lot of people thought that's very cool. I like that. And that's called personal taste. You're allowed to have taste. But despite the first album, When We Sleep, Where Do We Go, being a much worse title for an album, it's a much better album. There's a lot better moments on the first album, whereas the second album, I just found myself so many of the songs just fade into each other and don't really go anywhere. Part of the whole Phineas sound is like it isn't just an acoustic guitar; it's got like a light kick drum and like a light pad under it, but it's really minimalist. And then she's singing with this like real whisper, so she's like right in your ear, and that's obviously part of the whole thing. Which means when you have that minimalism thing, similar to what Lorde was doing on her first album, when you're really minimalist, if you then have a big, release like a big drop or like a big melody or a big explosion in music, it really explodes. But there's not really many moments like that on this. I guess Oxytocin is one of the only ones, but like mainly the production is just really middling. The mixing on some of the tracks is really not great. And I think it's the ballady stuff I tend to have more of a problem with on this album. I think the more sort of upbeat, more sort of pop tunes work better, whereas like songs like Your Power as a single are just so uninteresting. The album just felt really long. Like loads of the tracks just didn't really feel like they went anywhere. Yeah, not very good. Not very good this album. Lastly, in July, we have Alex Marshall's House of Lull, House of When. So this guy is the lead singer of Daughters, who I'm actually not a big fan of. Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of Daughters. I've listened to a lot of their stuff and just it just doesn't do it for me. I don't know what it is. I've tried to listen to You Won't Get What You Want, that Daughter's album that was doing the rounds a couple of years ago. I've tried listening to that like numerous times and just it's never clicked. It just sounds like a really bland version of Swans. So going into this, if you're a big Daughters fan, maybe you'll like this a lot more than I did. But like I this really did not do it for me. It was actually really bad. I think these tracks will like build and build and explode, but like there's nothing emotional about it for me. Like they don't explode and I sort of go, oh my god. In the same way that like Have a Nice Life would. Like the opener really builds and then explodes, but the build up of him just being like the past, it was like awful. I just thought it was like a really bad emo song. The vocals on this really remind me of Cursive, the punk band, or I don't know if punk is really the genre that kind of did a lot, but like Tim Kasher, I think is the name of the lead singer from Cursive, has that sort of really emotional, over the top, almost theatrical level of sadness, but like I really like it in Cursive. When summer's over, will we dream of spring, or even like the ugly organ and things like that. Like I love his vocal takes on that, whereas like Alexis Marshall and this is just it just doesn't do it for me at all. There's some like really cool ideas on this, like the saxophone that's like sliced up on Just Doesn't Feel Good Anymore should be like a really cool sound, but it's kind of underwhelming. Yeah, just like lyrically and even just musically, the whole thing just sounds like a 13-year-old's diary. I just don't get the appeal at all. And it's not that I don't like music like this. I just don't feel like heart wrenched. It doesn't tug at my heartstrings. It doesn't make me uncomfortable. It doesn't make me feel anything except like this isn't very good. I actually think as well, if anything, this has cheapened Daughters for me. Like I said before, I didn't really get them, and I feel like listening to this made me go, I don't know what there is to get. So I'd be curious whether or not people who love Daughters, whether or not you think this was good or bad, or what am I missing? So August. First up we have Donda by Kanye West slash Donda, the extended version, Deluxe, Donda Deluxe, plus Donda Listening Party 1, 2, 3, technically four, with the Vegas one. So I'm an unapologetic massive Kanye stan. Just absolutely 100% in the cult. Yes, the man has said some things, done some things that are that I don't agree with. But just I don't know. I don't know if there's another artist alive who can command my attention quite like Kanye West can. I was totally following these listening parties, stayed up for all of them. I think, although the final product is the best version of quite a few of the songs, I genuinely think Listening Party 2 is maybe the best listening experience I've had this year, or one of the best listening experiences I've had this year. I think if I now listen to that second listening party side by side, there'd be stuff where I go, God, that sounds way worse from memory and blah blah blah. But I just remember being quite drunk, and it was like 3 in the morning, and I was sitting waiting, and then the first listening party was so messy. There were some songs that were so unfinished, and just hearing this fully like realized version of Donda, which isn't the one we got because it was edgier. The track listing made the whole album feel like it was kind of going on this journey in which he became more and more depressed, abandoning his family. I don't want to talk too much about Donda because I genuinely could talk about it for a very long time. Um, there are tracks on it that aren't great. Television, the Pop Smoke one being the most obvious one. The track Donda itself, the final iteration of that is kind of disappointing without the Pusha T and Kanye verse, which I understand why they cut because it featured lyrics where he was talking about the meltdown he had during the presidential run, where he basically talked about how he was nearly going to abort North. So, I get why he wouldn't necessarily want that out there, but at the same time, like, if Plan A worked, you wouldn't know your daughter and all those lines. Holy, holy, holy water, etc. is was absolutely incredible. Believe What I Say is one of the bangers of the year. 24 is beautiful. I thought it was beautiful from the start. I loved it like at LP1, listening party one. I know obviously it was repetitive and whatever, but I just thought it was this insane, gospel tune. What else? Jesus Lord. That cipher is incredible. Especially part two, which was the original one, which has more features on it. I love the vocals on Jail. Guess who's going? Guess who's going to jail tonight? It's so huge. The production on this, at its best, is incredible. Yes, there are moments where the vocals are clunky. Like you can tell they've been thrown together. Come to Life is 100% of my top 10 songs this year. Just absolutely stunning. Goosebumps every time I listen to it. Genuinely. Is Donda top Kanye? No. Is it a very good album? Yes, probably. There's some bad tracks on it, but like, yes, like at its highs, it's good, and I'm glad that Kanye can still pump out bangers and can still pump out insane production. Is it album of the year? No, but does it have all the ingredients of an album of the year? Yes. I think the darker version of this, where the track listing is more like listening party two, I think cutting some of the vocals, some of the lyrics and stuff, tracks like Never Ban Your Family, although made it into the deluxe version, were so integral to the narrative of the first listening parties, and he clearly wanted to shift away from that. To me, talking about Donda as an album is so kind of bizarre, and I don't mean that because Donda's not an album; it's an experience or whatever. It's a life event, whatever the freaking copy pasta was. It's more to me that like, um, the album was literally developed in front of you over weeks, and even still now, you're watching Kanye like perform these songs. He's like hit the top of his career again, with these big hits, and he's like performing with Drake while his marriage is still falling apart. Well, he's divorced. It's actually essentially now, etc. You really are watching someone who puts their whole life so transparently in front of you, even if it's incredibly detrimental to the people around him. And I don't think there's another artist kind of doing that in the same way Kanye is, because it isn't just him being emotionally vulnerable. It's him like being so ridiculous. He's just I don't know. He's such an enigma. He's an enigma. I could talk about Kanye all day and I won't. Anyway, moving on. Next up, Pressure Machine by The Killers. This album was a massive surprise. So I've sort of half listened to The Killers for the last few years. I don't think I've listened to any of their albums all the way through properly. Um, Basically since their second, for like basically since their first two albums. But I'd heard a lot of good stuff about this, so I stuck it on, and I was absolutely not expecting a dark ambient field recording that sounds like something between like a Bright Eyes album and like a Harmony Korine film. Obviously, these are littered through the whole album, so the whole album is about like suburbia, maybe suburbia is not the word, like middle America, small town, and it features these little sort of 45-second, 30-second skits, I guess, or recordings where it'll be like a child talking about their experience, or an old man, or and all these different perspectives. Aside from that, musically it's very Bruce Springsteen. A lot of people have drawn that comparison. It reminds me of Counting Crows as well. Remember Counting Crows, man? One criticism I'd have is that, like, aesthetically, going from these like dark sort of pads and really sort of ominous recordings to like twee pop sort of folk music feels really bizarre. Like imagine Gummo and then jangly acoustic guitar. You know what I mean? Do 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 kind of thing. It's just a bit weird. Phoebe Bridgers is a feature on this, because she is still attempting to have a guest appearance on every single American band's album ever. But no, her voice. I mean, it's Phoebe Bridgers. You know it's gonna be good. She's never like she's done less interesting guest appearances, but like at her worst, she's always pretty good. Sleepwalker reminded me of Head Rolls Off by Frightened Rabbit. It's just good. It's a good album. It's just a really good like indie folk album. Um, as I say, if you're into stuff like Bruce Springsteen and stuff, absolutely check this out. It's really nice to see like a band like the Killers come back, and well, I say come back, they never really went away, but like you just like they still have it in them to put out like a really solid album, which is very cool. They also did, which is a bit surreal, an abridged version where it's just the same album except without the recordings, without the like interludes with the townsfolk and the dark ambience. So it's basically just like 10 tracks, whatever it is. Um, which you're getting into a genuine debate about like that's so weird because like in terms of artistic integrity, you're basically going, oh screw that. This is an easier listen, but at the same time, like it makes sense in the streaming era, and it makes sense like just in general, sometimes you don't want to listen to 30 seconds of an intro before listening to a tune. It's kind of like the deluxe version is the normal version now. Just thought that was kind of a neat thing, but yeah, good album. Again, not going to be in my top 10 or anything, but just like good stuff. Good stuff. Like next in August, we have Lingua Ignota's Sinner Get Ready. So I adored Caligula. I think Caligula is a genuine masterpiece. Like just one of those like there's not that many albums where I've had an experience or even any art, like even a film or um, you know, anything, any piece of media where I've known nothing going into it and hit, stuck headphones on or hit play or whatever and just been totally floored. Like Caligula. Obviously there's like movies, TV shows, albums and stuff that have made me cry. But usually I've like heard a single before that or I have a clue. Like Sufjan Stevens putting Carrie and Lull out wasn't a shock. Like it had been I remember reading about the album, kind of expecting it a bit. Whereas I had no idea what Caligula was. I just stuck headphones on and it could have been a pop record. It could have been a jazz record. It could have been a hip hop record. I knew nothing, right? And I hit play, and I hear this insane, abrasive, just noisy, horrendous sounds mixed with this genuine pain in these vocals, as in just absolutely translating trauma. My whole heart sank, and I remember like genuinely feeling horrendous after listening to that album for the first time, in a good way. It doesn't sound like I'm saying that, but as in, I listened to it and I could just feel like a pain in my chest. Like I just finished it and was almost like, man, I don't know. Like I can't listen to any more music today. I can't watch. Like I just like whoa. It's as if I've got bad news. I'm just so moved. So, Sinner Get Ready was kind of disappointing for me. Now, is it good? Yes. Is there like is she absolutely carving and not even a niche for herself? Is like she making genuine incredible art that like I don't know if anyone else is really making anything like this right now. Yes. Is she incredible? Yes. Is this a good album? Yes. But is it Caligula? No. And like following Caligula, she was always going to kind of run into a thing for me. Like it's hard to um to follow up a masterpiece, like especially one as vocal and huge as that. Like there's not really any room, and it's just a case of like some of the choices in Sinner Get Ready don't really hit for me. Like although the vocal arrangements on this thing are incredible, but like I'll give you a perfect example. The I Bend Tall Grass, the second track, um I Bend like Tall Grass, coming up the name of it. The organ on that like just doesn't, it's just not interesting. I get why she's doing it. It's very hymnal and very, is that a word? Um, it sort of evokes like a church setup and stuff, but it just isn't that interesting for me to listen to. This is where you're getting into like this is absolutely just down to taste. Someone could tell me that Caligula was alright, but this is the much better album, and I would disagree. But like, they're not wrong. They just like what they're hearing more. I'm talking about this so negatively. Like, it's an 8 out of 10 for me. Does that make sense? It's just that Caligula was like a once in a decade 10 out of 10 type thing. Like, just an absolute masterpiece out of nowhere. Yeah. Absolutely. Everyone should listen to Lingua Ignota. I'm not convinced I'm pronouncing her name right, but I've butchered so much today. It's just good to be consistent. Lastly, in August, we have Lorde Solar Power. This was just bad, wasn't it? I mean, it's just totally forgettable, uninteresting acoustic pop tunes that um I don't know. Like, I'm of the opinion that Lorde has actually gotten worse every album. I know Melodrama is probably our most critically acclaimed and whatever, and the fan favorite. But I think I bought Pure Heroin when I was like 15, and she was the same age as me, and I remember listening to it being like, how is she this much better than me? Like, how is this songwriting so mature, and like the production's so great, and there's like the arc of the whole album so good. Not that Pure Heroin is literally a storyline, but you can just see like little story threads come back up and stuff. Then I listened to Melodrama, and it was good, but I just felt like, it just never um I don't know, some of the instrumental bits on it just weren't that interesting. I just don't think the production's as good. I think the songwriting's like, I see why she made decisions what she did, but like, I just don't like, it's just a little bit too self-indulgent, I guess, for me, some of the second album. But this third album is just absolutely awful. I mean, it's like one of the most disappointing albums of the year. Except sort of hardcore fans, I kind of doubt anyone's listened to this since the first 2 weeks of it coming out. Just like the first single, Solar Power, being bland mood rings, was like a nothing track. The salon at the nails salon or whatever, I really hated that track. The path sums up the whole album to me, because it starts with that acousticy thing that the whole album has, and it builds and builds, and it kind of gets to this bit, and you kind of go, okay, okay, and then it literally just fades out, and the track literally just sounds like they just took the fader and went, that's the end of the song. Like, it doesn't sound like they thought, how does this end? They just wrote and just went, yeah, that'll do. Just not careless, like, not careless as in you made a mistake, like careless as in like, I just don't think they cared that much. I don't get the feeling that like this album was crafted, and I kind of refuse to believe they listened to this. Maybe like the vibe she was in, she was like, this is class, but like, I just can't imagine sitting in the studio and being like, yes, this is a worthy follow up to my previous two albums. So into September, first off we have Little Simz. Sometimes I Might Be Introvert. This album, when the first single came out, Introvert, and you heard those drum roll and the like huge strings and orchestra, and then that lovely guitar tone come in. Just everything about it. Um, it was just like, this is gonna be good. This is going to be a really good album. Singles for an album are something really specific, because you would think that releasing the best song, it's not just the best song on the album you release, it's the single. So that might be the pop tune, the 3 minute song, or that might be just a taster of the album, or the catchiest song, whatever. The single for this, Introvert, like, you heard that and you were just like, this album is going to be so focused. Here, Simz is like playing with loads of different sounds, loads of different ideas, but it's all blending so well. So I would be shocked if the rest of the album didn't do it as well. However, it absolutely does do it as well. This is an amazing album. Absolutely contender for album of the year. The acoustic drums on this album, they're from what I can gather, they were live acoustic drums. Like you got a session drummer in the strings, the woodwind and stuff. Like this thing's so gorgeous. There's that track that's about halfway through the album, Speed, that sounds like kind of like Salt or MIA again, and it's like it's so minimalist, just mainly those drums and then that synth thing that comes in later, and like the fact that that's so good should just tell you how great this album is. Like it doesn't matter if she's there with like two tracks under her, or if she's there with a full orchestra plus a live band plus like break beats plus whatever. She's absolutely like bringing all these elements together and just being amazing. It's so difficult to make that so seamless and so easy, and she absolutely does it the whole way. Only criticism I'd say for me is like some of the tracks, like that one, the rapper who came for tea, get a little bit too silly for me. Just a little bit too bizarre, a little bit too quirky, I think, for me. Point and Kill and Fear No Man, like I love the almost Afrobeat sort of African traditional sound that she's working with there as well later in the album. I really hope that's something she kind of pushes towards, maybe in her next project, like going down to sort of more traditional African percussive stuff. But I mean, like whatever she chooses to do is going to be good. This album doesn't happen by accident. I mean, yeah, what else is there to say? Just great storytelling, incredible instrumentals, classic, absolute classic. Yeah, what an amazing album. Next up in September we have Montero by Lil Nas X. This album was okay to good. You know what I mean? Like somewhere between the two. Mainly it was okay. A lot of it's quite easy listening, very poppy, which doesn't massively appeal to me. For me, I'd rather listen to someone take a massive risk on the album not be very good than listen to someone like 15 tracks all sound the same. I think the singles are probably the best tracks on this. Like Montero was a banger, Industry Baby was good. That's What I Want is a proper good big pop tune, like really catchy. But for every one of those tracks that's like a good single or a good pop tune, there's like two tunes that won't go anywhere. Tunes like Scoop or Lost in the Citadel were just like whatever. I was really disappointed by the Elton John feature. I saw that he was a feature and I was like, oh, that's gonna be class. And instead, like it's just him playing piano, and the piano's really nice at the end of that tune, but like it's buried under the mix. So it's like, what's the point? Why not do like a big pass the baton tune between Elton John and Lil Nas X? It'd been an incredible moment, and instead it's this like meh track that just features a nice piano in the background at one point. Yeah, just an okay album. Not a lot to say on this. Next up, Civilizations by Kirokiro Benito. So, not it's sort of an album. It's a couple of EPs they've put out, plus I think a couple of new songs. So the first EP I think came out like a year ago, but the album itself, the whole collection, just came out this year. But this was really good. Just like proper good, like fun bubblegum synth pop. It's like a more chilled out version of the previous stuff. Like it can still get weird and still explore some really bizarre sounds and stuff, but it's like a little bit more settled. There's tracks like Princess and the Clock that are almost like future funk. Lyrically as well, like the lyrics on this thing are just really fun, nice imagery that really fit with the whole musical vibe. Like you've got this really nice sort of dreamy reverberated music with these like sugar coated lyrics, and it really combines really nicely. Well Rested is like Pyramids by Frank Ocean meets Tame Impala Currents, whilst also sounding like a soundtrack from a Super Nintendo. It's just such that's on. This is again one of the best songs of the year. I love this song so much. It's so like ridiculous and fun and so well made. Just really good, really good. Yeah, this is a really good album. Really enjoyed this. I didn't see a lot of people talk about it. I don't think got much attention at all. Kind of went under the radar, I think. I suppose because it's not literally a new album, it's some previously released songs as well. But um, yeah, really, really good. Then we have Sufjan Stevens and Angelo de Augustine, A Beginner's Mind. This album's pretty reminiscent of the sort of twinkly acoustic guitar Capo 7 arpeggios that we've heard quite a lot from Sufjan, but with Angelo's vocals, they kind of combine in like Simon and Garfunkel harmonies, which is stunning. Tracks like Lady Macbeth in Chains or Olympus, um, I listen to the hell out of. They're just really, really good songs. It's just the same old. Everything I love about Sufjan Stevens, he can put out like 5 hours of ambient music. He can put out like dark, sort of electronica, drum machine heavy tracks on the Ascension, and then like a year later, he can put out this lovely acoustic record. Another one that kind of I feel like didn't necessarily get enough attention. I don't think it's his best album or anything like that, but it's just like well worth a listen and a nice introduction to Angelo de Augustine, who I knew nothing about before this. Next, we have Certified Lover Boy by Drake. So, funny story about this album. I listened to this all the way through, and then because I listened to it the day it came out, just kind of by coincidence. I wasn't exactly, you know, sitting up waiting for Drake. It was just I was working and I, had the time to stick some album on in the background. So I listened to Certified Lover Boy all the way through. And then I also then listened to Sometimes I Might Be Introvert, the Little Simz album, because I'm pretty sure they came out the same day. And I basically just wished I'd listened to Little Simz twice in a row instead. This Drake album is terrible. It's so bad. Made worse as well, if you can imagine, because I listened to this like bland, so uninteresting, like phone in by one of the biggest stars in the world, and then immediately listened to a lot of people's favorite album this year, the sonic expansive experimental Risk by Lil Simz. It was just such a like, oh, that's what a good artist does. They don't make this, they make this. Like Drake had started to become huge when I started university. Not like obviously he's been a big name for quite a while, but as in like he went from, oh, he's pretty famous to like, oh, he's literally the most famous artist in the world. And I liked headlines. I liked some of his stuff at the weekend. Um, who also hadn't totally blown up yet. I thought his back to back diss was pretty neat. Then I went to uni, and in my first year, like everyone was requesting Hotline Bling and doing the dance in a nightclub and whatever, and like um people walked around with the Christmas jumpers with Drake on the front. Um, I remember Views dropped, and I, despite that album being absolute dog shite, Feeling the Ways I loved. I thought it was a really, really good tune. I still think it's a really good tune. But then it came out that Drake is a creepy, grooming weirdo, and um, I've just not listened to Drake since. I don't know what my point is. I don't want to dwell on Certified Lover Boy. I think it's crap. Total trite. I thought Fair Trade was, I think, the best song on it when I first listened to it, and then immediately that was followed by Way Too Sexy, which is a contender for the worst single of the year. I think it's a terrible, uninteresting album. Don't listen to it. Go listen to something actually half decent that I've recommended. Let's not give this man any more attention, please. Then, Baby Keem, The Melodic Blue. This album was basically my introduction to Keem. I'd heard one single before this, and his feature on Donda. Bing, da boom. I heard Family Ties, and I was like, whoa, I love this. And I don't like, I see a lot of people, oh, if Kendrick wasn't rapping, people would call that rap terrible, but they're wrong. Like, Kendrick's features on Melodic Blue are class, and I'll die on that hill. Are they goofy and stupid and whatever? Yes. But are they amazing? Yes. I love I love the Melodic Blue. I love this album. I don't think it's like perfect by any capacity. I think there's entire tracks that I'm like, no, it's not great. But like, I don't know, the fact that he made this, most of this, he's got production credits and everything. Like he's producing this stuff and making this weird sort of experimental SoundCloud sound, and then his vocals are just so expressive and so again ridiculous, over the top, and like these bizarre flows and jumping the octave, dropping down again. You know, Trademark USA is amazing. Family Ties is amazing. Range Brothers is track of the year material. I again, I don't care if it's meme rap shit or something. I genuinely love it. Some of the lyrics are kind of forgettable, but Keem seems to be really good at like moments, just like little moments that are quite memorable, quite funny, quite whatever. Like there's that one where he's like, "Ha ha ha, I'm laughing at you." Like it's so over the top, the delivery of it and everything. He has that line on Scapegoats that's like, "In a few years, I'll tell you how my life was unfortunate. But for now, I'll tell you how fast the Porsche gets." To me, that's like him admitting like this album is just me having fun and writing like goofy lyrics about um partying and girls and doing drugs and whatever. Whereas like next is like after this, once he's established himself, which is clearly done, and obviously with the help of Kendrick's features, as a tie in the industry, plus obviously then even other people like Travis Scott is on this, and he's got a feature on Kanye. You know, he's blown up and he's really put his foot in. And to me, like what I can picture him doing now after this album is keeping making these weird experimental little albums where the lyrics will get a bit more introspective, a bit more interesting. And I think like he'll end up being this kind of wild card, kind of like JPEG Mafia. It's like the alternative album of the year. And then at some point, 4 or 5 albums in, you kind of go, "Oh, wait a minute, you know, they're really good. Oh my god." I'm not saying this as if Melodic Blue is like some incredible masterpiece, but I guess what I mean is like there's so much potential for something really, really, really good stuff. Then we have Gift of Gab, Finding Inspiration Somehow. So this was a posthumous record after Parker, who was one half of Black Alicious. He died of kidney failure, I think, this year. Um, and this was like kind of, I think he basically finished this album, knowing that he was ill. Because there's a couple of lyrics alluding to that, where he talks about his condition and so on. This was pretty good. It wasn't amazing, but there are some really good tracks on it. The production is like Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, sort of classic hip hop. But to be honest, you're not really listening for the production. You're basically just listening to his flow. Like he's 100% was one of the best MCs in the sort of underground. Definitely one of the most respected. I've seen a lot of circles talking about him. It's sad listening to this for sure. It's quite emotional, sort of knowing like he knew, as I say. So he has bars about like being ill. Songs like Vice Grip, I had them on repeat. The Idea of America is amazing. I would start with that. If you've never listened to him, I would listen to either of those two first. And listen to Black Alicious. Black Alicious are amazing. Yeah, if you're into sort of old school hip hop, I would definitely try this out. Next album, Injury Reserve. By the time I get to Phoenix, you know, I listened to this a couple times when it came out, a few months back, and I didn't really return to it. I don't really get the hype for this album, if I'm honest. It has all the elements of stuff I like, so experimental hip hop. The drummer of Black Midi is, I think, the main producer, but I don't know. I found like a lot of the experimentation on this album was just kind of uninteresting to me. I like I felt like there was a lot of songs where you would have like extreme panning from left to right, so you know, left to right headphones, and then you would have like just stuff cutting in and out, and you know, phaser effects and flanger and everything and so on. But like I don't know how much it served. Clearly people were listening to this and going like, whoa, and having some amazing listening experience. I was just listening to like just going, oh, okay, they've thrown like 10 effects on this. Yeah, I just think it's kind of overcooked. You know what I mean? Like I just think like um I think this is that line for me where like you're experimenting to the point of just like the detriment of the record rather than improving it. Is it interesting? Yes, and is some of there are like moments on this album where I'm like, whoa, that sounds amazing. Like footwork in a forest fire, is really good. Postpartum is class. Or sorry, postpartum. Knees, is also really good. But then like of those three or four songs, that I really liked, there was just a lot of stuff where I was just like, okay, I don't know, maybe I do just need to come back to it when some time has passed, but it just sounded like Death Grips on like Butthole Surfers at times, but with that like 8D audio YouTube crap. Like Wild West kind of sums up what I think of this album. Like that guitar could have been really nice, but instead, with it cut up the way it is, it just kind of interrupts the flow of it for me. But at the same time, it doesn't actually disorient. It doesn't do anything except just take me out of the song. Like I find listening to this album, I just find myself kind of going, "Oh, that's how they would have done that." As I say, I was surprised that this didn't really do it for me, because like I like a lot of stuff here. A lot of my favorite albums are experimental hip hop, but this is just not one of them. Um, but again, maybe someone could convince me. And maybe I'll re-listen to it in some time and go like, "Whoa!" But till then, sorry guys, not great. And lastly, for September, we have Nala Cinefro. Sounds most plausibly how you pronounce that. Butchering. Oh my god, this might be one of the most stunning things I've listened to this year. So it's basically her main instrument, Nala. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce her second name again. Is pedal harp, and it's kind of jazz influenced pedal harp. So it would put you in mind of like Alice Coltrane, but she then combines it with like modular electronic pads and like acoustic drums, and it's just like, so it's got elements of like electronic music to it and elements of like more standard jazz sounds. Like one track you'll have these beautiful horns and stuff, and then the next track you have like skittery electronics and like drum breaks. It's like I genuinely can't say enough about this album. It is absolutely stellar, and like I I can talk about what I like all day, but the best thing you can do is just stick it on. Like just go Spaces 1.8, just go stick it on. I don't care what context, alone in your room in the dark or while you're doing your dishes. Just absolutely throw it on and you'll just get it immediately. Yeah, complete masterpiece. Probably my favorite sort of jazz record of the year. Sort of non popular music, like non hip hop, non rock, non pop, whatever. Um, just yeah, I mean, just absolutely stunning.